Hey guys, have you tried a recipe but it turns out less than delicious? All of us been there. But what if I tell you there's a secret ingredient that you can use to make your life a lot easier? Make sure to stick by the end of this video as I'm going to provide you 5 extra tips that can become really handy. I'm your host, Pedram Agand, a PhD student in computer science, and this is AI Fun Fact for All. But first, let's talk about why this actually happens. Well, AI models like ChatGPT are trained in massive amount of data. For them to actually do their magic, they need very clear instruction of what they need to do. It's like having a recipe without telling the measurements or what are the ingredients. That's actually when the prompt engineering come into play. You actually specifically tell the AI that what you are looking for to actually fire specific components of that LLM model. For example, let's say you want to write a funny poem about a cat. You can just type, write a poem about a cat, but you will not get a good response. You will get a very generic response, and it's an effective way of prompting. But you can write, in a style of Dr. Seuss, write a poem about a cat that is stealing socks. You see the difference? You can actually provide this extra information to narrate what you exactly expect from the LLMs. I have read different blog posts and articles by OpenAI and other authors in order to know how to effectively communicate with ChatGPT or other LLMs. I have also read different LinkedIn or Reddit posts and come up with 10 different principles that we can use on how to effectively communicate with LLMs. And a disclaimer here that even we said that it is ChatGPT, but it's actually used on any large language models. For example, Bard, Gemini by Google, or for example, Llama or any local language models. In addition, I will also talk a little bit about what are the technical details of some of these methods. Don't get worried if you didn't completely understand it. You can simply ignore it and it don't have effect on how to effectively use these methods. I asked ChatGPT that what is prompt engineering? Based on what it says is prompt engineering refers to the process of crafting or designing effective prompts to guide or elicit desired responses from language models or users. You technically have 2 paths in here. The first one is that you actually use the already well-crafted templates and just try to use them, or you actually draft your own prompts based on following this 10 principles that I will talk about. For the templates, you can use AI for Work, which provide a lot of prompts in the context of work environment, or you can use the OpenAI documents itself, which is available in platform.openai.com, then go to the documents and then prompts, or you can use the blog post that I have in opaspro.com, which I will put the link in the description. Principle number 1, the setting. Remember we said that the ChatGPT and the large language model are trained on massive amount of data, and those data are very irrelevant to each other. So when we are asking something, we need to let the ChatGPT know that what is the role that they are playing. Let's say you want to direct a movie. You cannot just throw a bunch of actors there and hope for a masterpiece, right? So you need to let them know that what is the exact role of them and what is the context that they are playing in. For example, let's say you want to write a funny email to a coworker. You wouldn't just ask ChatGPT to write an email. It's better to ask something like, write an email in a voice of a slightly sarcastic but lovable coworker asking John what is the status of the report. You see the difference? This additional information can actually light the way of how the ChatGPT can actually provide the details for you. Come here. Do you want to hear a pro tip? It's actually very annoying that each time you have to actually write the setting over and over again, even when the setting is actually completely fixed. There is some way that you can actually make this process automatic, that you don't have to write it every time in the beginning of your prompts with ChatGPT. For that, you just need to go to the ChatGPT platform, and in here under your name, you're actually gonna choose the customize ChatGPT. Then it will ask you that customize your interaction with ChatGPT. You're gonna say yes. The custom instruction in here are actually something that you will talk about that are your settings, and then here you will talk about how would you like to respond, which is basically the style and other things which we will cover in the following principles. Principle number 2, the instruction. It's all about being very crystal clear and show exactly what do you want from the ChatGPT. For example, let's say you want to teach your dog a new trick. You wouldn't just say to do something impressive, right? You will ask him to do sit, stay, and then tell him exactly step by step what needs to be done to actually accomplish this task. Principle number 3, define a style and format. This principle is all about what do you expect your desired output to be. It can be about the style of it, which is, for example, the tone of the response. Is it business? Is it casual? Or about the format of the output. Are you looking, for example, for a WordPress output? You can generate an HTML, or if you are looking for an Excel output, you can generate a table and you can just copy it and put it on your Excel. Or are you looking for something that you can put inside a Python code? For example, you can generate a JSON format. Principle number 4, give LLM time to think. LLM are very powerful, but they cannot do everything. If there's a complex task, we need to simplify it and give them a step-by-step approach of how they can tackle it. There are 2 ways that we can do this. The first one is called least to most prompting, or sequential prompting, which means that we give the LLM what are the steps to accomplish this. We can also ask the LLM to tell us what are the steps required to actually solve this problem. And then the LLM can actually provide those steps and try to do them step by step. The second approach is iterative prompting, which is basically means we ask the question and provide the result, and then ask follow-up question on the next prompt and try to provide extra details and understand that how the other steps needs to be done, and then finish the whole prompt. Principle number 5, set the boundaries. It's about affirmative and negative words like do's, don'ts, you must do this, you have to achieve this, you should avoid this. There's no need to be polite with LLMs, like please do this, thank you for doing this. For example, when you want to write a blog post, you can say write an article about this specific topic, but avoid using technical jargon. Principle number 6, in-context learning is when you provide additional information in the form of an example inside your prompt and let the LLM to learn this extra information inside the context. It is actually very useful when you think that the task that you're asking is not probably in the training dataset. There are 3 ways that this can be done. The first is zero-shot learning, which basically you don't provide any example at all, and it's form of like a very basic format of the role at the first and then the instruction. But there is another way, which is one-shot learning, which you provide one example followed by your instruction. The third approach is few-shot learning, which you not only provide one example, but you provide up to 3 or even 4 examples. The research shows that more than 3 or 4 is actually not providing additional in-context learning for the ChatGPT. So for in-context learning, your prompt should be something like the role in the beginning, the instruction, and follow up by the question, which tells this is the input and this is the expected output. In the comments below, let me know about one of your best one-shot or few-shot prompts, and I will give one of you with the best response 1 year of premium membership in Apas Pro. Principle number 7, human-like prompts. When you're talking to ChatGPT or any other LLMs, you don't have to talk very different language. You can just use the same natural language that you use every day because they also have been trained on the same data. But if you're expecting to receive a response that is very specific, you need to somehow throw some words there to actually treat a specific part of the LLMs. So how you do this is, let's say for an example, you are trying to get a financial analysis of a stock. So what you can do, you can specify the role. You can say that you are an expert in financial analysis for over 20 years. But then after that, you can say something like, you have done work with Warren Buffett or Charlie Mungers, and you have some experience on getting financial advice. Throwing some words here can actually treat a specific part of the LLMs and get you the responses very specific to the question that you're asking. Principle number 8, complex problem trick. It is very hard for LLMs to compute some mathematical computation. And the reason is the LLMs are good at predicting what is the most probable token after that. And doing a very easy process, like for example, multiplication, can result in very poor or not correct results because they are not best in doing that. There are two ways that we can actually try to overcome this issue. The first one is chain of thoughts. With chain of thought approach, you try to ask ChatGPT to explain how they arrived to this specific solution. So instead of just giving an example that tell the ChatGPT that this is the response for this specific problem, you tell them that this was the steps that reach us to get to the final result. The second approach is using external tools, which is also called retrieval augmented generation or RAG. This can be done by providing a database or a program-aided language models or PAL. This basically means that instead of asking an LLM to provide us the final result, we ask them to provide, for example, a program that will generate the response, like for example, a Python program, and then later on, I can run this Python program and then generate the actual results. Principle number 9, the React framework. This is when you ask the LLM to combine the reasoning and action. For example, you want to write a blog post for the best restaurant in Paris. What you will do, you will ask GPT to actually write this response for you, but in addition, you ask it to search for the Google reviews or other reviews on that website and try to incorporate them inside this. So this one is the action, which actually the GPT need to go over and crawl the web to retrieve the information and then do the reasoning for you. Principle number 10, adversarial prompting. This is an advanced topic which you ask the LLMs to do something that they are not supposed to do, such as jailbreaking that happened in the GPT store when someone asked the GPTs to tell what was the prompt that generated you. Or for example, prompt injection, which you try to add something at the end of the prompt, which tried to override something that you wrote. In order to read more about these topics, I've put a post in Opus Pro in the description and you can follow that. Now is the fun part. We are going to talk about some tips that are going to be very handy in our everyday prompting. The first one is to add something like, I will give you extra tip if you provide a good response. This was shown that if we add this at the very end, it will provide the performance of the LLMs to be a lot better. The second tip is to use delimiter to separate different components in our prompt. It's not always a good idea to use inter to separate them. One of the famous delimiter is 3 sharp. So you put 3 sharp and then your, for example, content, and then you put the 3 sharp again. This is how you actually separate them. Are you worried about copywriting when using AI generated content? I think the best idea is to put a disclaimer and mention that this idea was generated from AI. But if you want to find a workaround, you can specifically ask the LLMs to provide an AI-proof response. In order to understand how this happened, we first need to know how they understand that it was an AI-generated content. Well, how the LLMs work is basically trying to predict the most probable token that happens after that. And usually for the ChatGPT, when we want to be very precise, we try to be greedy on picking the next probable token. So in that case, there is always a trend in what are the choices of words, and that's how they can actually understand if it was generated by ChatGPT or LLMs or not. And if we do make it AI proof or make it more creative, we can be just not very greedy and not very precise, but then choose different words in the spectra and make it to be less AI generated and more towards something that was generated by a human. Tip number 4 is about context length, which means how much from before LLMs can remember. 750 words is about 1000 tokens, and GPT-3 can remember up to 4K tokens. So as long as we are inside a chat, GPT can remember 4K tokens that happens before. And it doesn't necessarily have to be inside one specific prompt. But if we go beyond that, we need to remember ChatGPT or other LLMs, what was the context. The last but not least tip is about LLM pitfall. We need to know that what are the limitations of LLMs. One of them is hallucination, which is generating something that never exists. The other thing is citation. The LLMs have a struggle knowing what is the source of that specific knowledge that they provided. So we need to look for other resources to provide those citations. The other thing is bias, because the data that we're given to the LLMs to train are biased. The other is prompt injection, which we have talked about it in adversarial prompting. And last but not least is math, which we also said that we can do the chain of thoughts or RAG to actually provide the final solution. To top this off, I'm also going to give you some productivity tips that you can use for every day and save you a lot of time by using the LLMs. The first is when you are going to go over a very large article or a book or a YouTube video, but you don't have time to do that. So what you will do is you either copy the context of it or just put the link of the article or the link of the YouTube plus the title of the YouTube, and then at the end of it write TLDR, too long didn't read, and then summarize the action items and the key findings. The second is you want to understand a complex topic. You can write that specific context and then write something like, simplify this context to me. Write it in a way as I'm a 10-year-old. Make it simpler for me. These are the other things that can be right in your prompt to make it simple. And the last one is reframing, which is basically the most complex prompt engineering context that you can have for a specific problem. So what you will do, you will provide a structure, and then you're gonna say that these are the features that I want, and then you say that this is my problem, now try to readapt it based on this. So what you will do, you will have your role on the top, then your instruction, then you have your examples if you want to do few shots, and then you have your context, and then finally your questions. So what is important in here is that the context is actually provide those key features that you're looking for, and the question is for your specific problem. Here is one example. You see, you are a doctor. This is basically the role. Read this medical history. This is the instruction, and then predict risk for the patient. This is basically the question, and then you provide the context after it. Or you can do it in a way that you provide the context first and then the other content after that. So the second one is more preferred because, as we said, it is least to most important. So the most important parts should become at the end of your prompt. And there you have it, guys. There was 10 different principles that you can use to make an effective prompting and get the response that you desire from your LLMs. I also provide you 5 different pro tips that can become handy, and also some productivity tips. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. See you until the next one.